Prison isn't the safest place for a man who knows too many of Hollywood's darkest secrets. Sean "Diddy" Combs was recently sentenced to 50 months behind bars, but the terrifying reality exploding across the industry right now is that he might not survive to see his 2028 release date. Joe Rogan just broke down the chilling reason why the walls are closing in on the music mogul, and it has nothing to do with standard prison violence. The ultimate protection shield has officially shattered. With the sudden death of legendary music titan and Diddy's ultimate mentor, Clive Davis, Diddy's last powerful lifeline to the outside world is gone. Reports say he broke down crying in his cell, realizing he is now completely exposed. But it gets worse. Shocking rumors of a newly leaked tape from Jeffrey Epstein's private island have surfaced, threatening to add decades to his sentence and permanently bury his legal appeals. At the same time, horrifying court testimonies from victims like Audria English and April Lamprose are exposing a dark, decades-long pattern of coercion, while resurfaced clips of a young Justin Bieber are leaving audiences absolutely traumatized. Now, with his back against the wall, a terrifying question is being asked in the shadows of Hollywood. Who wants Diddy silenced before he can talk? From his ex-bodyguard Big Hammy fleeing the country out of fear, to explosive warnings surrounding Cassie, Cat Williams, and heavyweights like Jay-Z. The revenge list is real, and the stakes are life or death. Are powerful elites planning to reach inside those prison walls to ensure he stays quiet forever? We are connecting the dots in real time, pulling back the curtain on the conspiracy, and revealing why Diddy's time may be running out. To understand why Sean "Diddy" Combs' survival behind bars is suddenly in question, we have to look directly at the volatile environment inside the federal prison system. The illusion of celebrity protection evaporates the moment the heavy steel doors slam shut. Diddy's legal team initially fought aggressively against his placement at the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn, a facility notorious for overcrowding, rampant violence, and chaotic management. Insiders quickly leaked reports that the music mogul's transition from a life of extreme luxury to a bleak prison cell was anything but smooth. Rumors swirled that Diddy allegedly woke up to a knife at his throat and faced physical altercations before authorities scrambled to transfer him to FCI Fort Dix. This initial breach of security sent a clear, undeniable message to the entire entertainment industry. Inside the system, a multi-million-dollar net worth cannot buy immunity from physical danger. The streets quickly began buzzing with the reality that the pressure from enemies, both inside and outside the walls, was mounting at an unprecedented pace. The structural collapse of Diddy's defense strategy took its most devastating blow with the sudden passing of legendary music executive Clive Davis at the age of 94. In the music industry, Davis was not just a successful businessman. He was an absolute titan, the ultimate kingmaker who shaped the careers of icons ranging from Whitney Houston to Pink Floyd. For a young, hungry Diddy entering the music industry decades ago, Clive Davis was the ultimate gatekeeper who provided the keys to the kingdom. He didn't just mentor Diddy in business. He allegedly introduced him to the hyper-exclusive, private circles where real power moves, deals that are never written on paper, and alliances that dictate who stays protected in Hollywood. When the news of Davis's death reached Diddy's cell, prison staff reported that the mogul completely broke down, wailing heavily as if he had just lost his final lifeline. This emotional collapse wasn't just about grief. It was about the sudden realization of total isolation. Behind the scenes, Davis had allegedly been working tirelessly alongside Diddy's mother, Janice Combs, and a high-priced legal team to pull strings from the outside, quietly orchestrating strategies to secure an early release or a favorable appeal. Davis's immense influence meant he could command silence, control media narratives, and keep institutional doors open. When reporters previously cornered Davis, asking if he had spoken to Diddy since the federal raids or what he made of the horrific allegations, the legendary executive maintained an absolute, icy silence. That silence was his greatest weapon, protecting the infrastructure Diddy left behind. Now, with the protector gone, Diddy sits completely exposed inside a system that grows more hostile by the day. As the external support system fractures, the legal landscape is shifting into a permanent nightmare. Diddy's defense team recently appeared before a panel of appellate judges, trying desperately to argue that his 50-month sentence was fundamentally flawed. They claimed the original sentencing judge relied heavily on acquitted conduct, allegations of severe conspiracy that a jury had actually cleared him of, convicting him instead on the lesser charges of transporting individuals across state lines. While the defense scrambles for a rapid decision, noting that Diddy's current scheduled release date sits around April 15, 2028, the public and judicial patience has entirely worn out. The strategy of projecting a fully reformed image, with reports highlighting that Diddy is now completely sober, working diligently in the prison laundry unit, and participating in rehabilitation programs, is being utterly crushed by an endless wave of new leaks and devastating civil lawsuits. The most catastrophic threat to Diddy's potential freedom is the whispered existence of secret, unedited video footage. The cultural discourse took a terrifying turn when cultural commentators began pointing to new media leaks allegedly connecting prominent Hollywood figures to the wider, dark networks historically associated with Jeffrey Epstein's private island. If these secret tapes contain even a fraction of what investigative sleuths suspect, Diddy's carefully calculated legal appeals will be permanently destroyed. The panic inside those prison walls is palpable because these leaks don't just threaten to extend his prison sentence by decades, they threaten to expose a massive web of complicity that involves some of the most powerful names in modern entertainment and politics. The dam has broken completely, and the voices of survivors are finally being amplified by a public that refuses to look away. Audria English stepped forward with an explosive lawsuit under the Gender-Motivated Violence Act, detailing a horrific cycle of coercion and forced labor that began in the early 2000s. Originally hired as a young, ambitious go-go dancer for Diddy's famous white parties in the Hamptons and Miami, English described an initial experience that felt innovative and promising. But by the third party, the dream turned into a living nightmare. She testified that Diddy would actively isolate her, handing her over to powerful guests and forcing her to participate in extras. English recalled terrifying moments where she was forced to drink from specific champagne bottles, describing a state where her eyes were wide open but her consciousness was completely blacked out. For 2 decades, she self-medicated with alcohol to cope with the trauma because the Hollywood machine was too powerful to challenge. Now, with federal raids uncovering physical evidence and secret tapes, she is demanding absolute accountability. Following closely behind is the devastating filing by April Lampros, who detailed terrifying encounters dating back to the 1990s. As a young fashion student looking for mentorship in an industry Diddy dominated, Lampros was systematically subjected to a pattern of aggressive love bombing mixed with severe psychological control. She detailed multiple incidents of misconduct, beginning at a hotel room in Soho where she felt completely uneasy before being physically overpowered. Every time she attempted to sever ties, the mogul would pull her back in, promising that her career would skyrocket as long as she stayed on his good side. Similarly, Crystal McKenna testified that she was just 22 years old when she was pulled into the studio environment under the promise of career advancement, only to be exposed to dangerous substances and severe boundary violations. This repeating pattern of leveraging institutional power to exploit young, vulnerable talent has forced the public to re-examine the treatment of young stars who entered this orbit at a tender age. The most chilling example pulling at the public's conscience involves Justin Bieber. Resurfaced archival footage shows a 15-year-old Bieber standing next to a bragging Diddy, who looks directly at the camera and announces that he has been given temporary custody of the young singer. Diddy calls it a 15-year-old's dream, hinting at a wild, 48-hour period filled with activities they could not publicly disclose. When contrasted with Bieber's subsequent emotional breakdowns, public exhaustion, and raw interviews where he tearfully admitted wanting to protect young artists from going through the same dark experiences, the narrative becomes deeply disturbing. The protective walls that once shielded the elite are falling down in real time. Fellow celebrities who once proudly announced that ain't no party like a Diddy party, including high-profile figures like LeBron James and Ashton Kutcher, have retreated into absolute silence, desperately trying to distance their brands from the unfolding chaos. Peers like Meek Mill have faced immense public backlash online, with users relentlessly mocking his attempts to claim "No Diddy Gang" after years of being seen in the same ultra-exclusive spaces. The collective internet consensus is brutal. The industry figures who once bounced around these private circles are now looking completely traumatized, their eyes filled with the terrifying realization that the secrets kept in the dark are finally rushing into the blinding light. The sudden retreat of Hollywood's elite into absolute silence highlights the darker side of this unfolding drama, the absolute breakdown of trust, and the rise of a terrifying revenge list. For decades, the system operated on absolute compliance. If you were part of the inner circle, you kept your mouth shut, protected the brand, and reaped the financial rewards. But with federal prosecutors holding the keys and the threat of fresh indictments looming over anyone who ever stepped foot into a private lounge or a hotel suite, the motivation to keep Diddy silent has reached a boiling point. The streets are whispering a chilling counter-narrative that the danger inside those prison walls isn't just coming from random inmates, but from powerful, outside interests who cannot afford to let Diddy secure an early release or cut a deal with the government. At the very top of the list of people who blew the whistle on this empire is Cassie Ventura. Her groundbreaking lawsuit laid out the brutal reality of what was happening behind the manicured image of Black excellence. Cassie detailed years of psychological warfare, relentless physical control, and a severe chokehold on her personal and professional life. The leaked hotel hallway video, which showed Diddy physically assaulting her while she tried to escape to an elevator, shattered any lingering defense his public relations teams could manufacture. Court testimonies and text messages revealed that Cassie felt completely dirty and grimy during the forced freak-off events, which were frequently backed up by male escorts who witnessed the terrifying dynamics. According to insiders, Diddy viewed this public exposure as the ultimate betrayal, a direct act of snitching that brought down his entire multi-billion-dollar infrastructure. Observers in the courtroom noted that when Cassie took the stand, her demeanor was incredibly brave, head held high, visibly carrying the weight of the trauma, but refusing to make any eye contact with the defendant. She testified that she constantly feared blackmail because she knew these private sessions were routinely recorded on secret cameras hidden throughout his residences. The concern now is that if Diddy ever manages to navigate his legal appeals and touch the streets again, the retaliation against those who spoke out could be swift and severe. This lingering fear has put a massive target on everyone who stepped forward to dismantle the wall of silence. Cassie is far from the only truth teller looking over their shoulder. Diddy's former head of security, known widely as Big Hammy, transitioned from a loyal insider to a loud, unyielding commentator on independent podcasts. He openly detailed the structural payoffs, the heavily guarded private parties, and the explicit operations used to maintain control over young artists and guests. The threats to his safety became so immediate and immersive that Big Hammy made the executive decision to pack up his life and leave the United States indefinitely. In raw, unedited interviews, he admitted that he does not trust the streets or the security apparatus anymore, confirming that the fear of severe reprisal from Diddy's remaining loyalists or powerful associates is a genuine, daily reality. He chose survival over country, stating plainly that his agreement with his family to stay alive meant moving far outside the reach of Hollywood's long shadow. The wave of exposure has also pulled mainstream cultural icons into the crosshairs. Cat Williams famously went viral during an explosive podcast appearance where he candidly discussed turning down massive financial offers, specifically $50 million 4 times, just to protect his personal integrity and dignity from the dark, behind-the-scenes rituals of the industry elite. Williams explicitly stated that the primary job of anyone who sold their soul in Hollywood is to act like the dark reality didn't happen, pretending that the exclusive, coercive parties were just normal networking events. By loudly declaring that he held the receipts for everything he witnessed and refusing to submit to the pressure, Williams placed himself directly on the radar of an establishment that relies heavily on absolute silence. The circle of fear continues to expand, ensnaring former group members and close artistic collaborators. Figures like Aubrey O'Day have openly expressed anxiety about their safety, even contemplating fleeing the country after speaking on their personal convictions regarding the toxic atmosphere inside the bad boy empire. Don Richards stepped forward to support Cassie's structural claims, filing legal documents that described highly volatile and violent moments, including an infamous incident involving a hot skillet. By adding their official testimonies to the federal record, these women effectively declared war on a media machine that spent 30 years burying complaints. Simultaneously, the sudden corporate distancing of industry heavyweights has fueled massive speculation. Jay-Z, who spent decades standing side by side with Diddy at the peak of the global entertainment hierarchy, completely vanished from the narrative the moment the federal raids commenced. Independent analysts note that this rapid, calculated retreat looks less like standard corporate caution and more like a desperate attempt to sever ties before the financial and social contagion spreads any further. Meanwhile, 50 Cent has weaponized the entire scandal, relentlessly mocking Diddy on social media platforms and aggressively producing a multi-part documentary series designed to expose the full, systemic rot of the private parties. This relentless public trolling has escalated the stakes, transforming a high-profile criminal case into a cultural war where the losers face total financial ruin and permanent social exile. When you connect the dots in real time, the picture that emerges is an absolute pressure cooker. The loss of Clive Davis means there is no longer a diplomatic bridge to the high councils of the music industry. The introduction of fresh civil lawsuits from survivors like Audria English and April Lamprose ensures that even if Diddy's expensive criminal defense lawyers manage to win a temporary appellate victory, a mountain of civil litigation is waiting to drain his remaining financial reserves. Add to this the terrifying wild card of leaked tapes from elite networks, and the motivation for powerful outside forces to intervene increases exponentially. The grand irony of the situation is that Diddy allegedly built his entire empire by learning from the absolute best gatekeepers in the world, mastering the art of leverage, secret recordings, and institutional fear to keep his subjects compliant. But now, the exact same rules of the game are being turned against him. Inside the walls of the correctional facility, isolated from his luxury, his networks, and his primary protectors, he is discovering that the system has no permanent loyalty. The online reaction to his current predicament reflects a public that has completely run out of empathy. Commentators openly state that what is done in the dark is finally crashing into the light, with millions echoing the sentiment that those who exploit power to run psychological fortresses belong behind bars for the remainder of their natural lives. The ultimate question moving forward is no longer about the survival of his career or the preservation of his legacy. Those are already dead. The true, terrifying gamble is whether he survives the dark, shifting alliances inside the prison long enough to ever see the outside world again. The structural collapse of the bad boy empire has reached its definitive final chapter, leaving the public to confront a reality that is far darker than anyone anticipated. For decades, the mainstream entertainment industry operated on a simple formula: hide the truth, protect the asset, and keep the money flowing. But the moment the federal government stepped in and the public turned their attention to the raw, unfiltered evidence, that formula completely failed. Diddy isn't just facing a legal battle inside a federal prison cell. He is facing the total erasure of a legacy he spent 30 years building through intimidation, leverage, and engineered silence. This brings the entire narrative back to the chilling warning dropped by Joe Rogan. In a system built on dark secrets, a man who knows too much becomes a walking liability. Independent analysts and cultural commentators are openly pointing out that Hollywood doesn't suddenly develop a moral conscience when it turns on one of its kings. Instead, the machine simply protects itself. As long as Diddy's exclusive white parties, high-profile network deals, and multi-million-dollar sponsorships were highly profitable, the gatekeepers were perfectly content to look the other way. They ignored the warnings from insiders, shrugged off the dynamic shifting behind closed doors, and silenced anyone who tried to blow the whistle. But the moment the legal contagion threatened to pull down the rest of the elite, the protective shield vanished, leaving him completely isolated within the prison walls. This systemic betrayal is precisely why the streets are buzzing with intense speculation about Diddy's physical survival. Inside a maximum security environment, Away from private security details and high-priced public relations firms, the rules of Hollywood no longer apply. The terrifying reality is that the threats aren't just coming from the inmates looking to make a name for themselves. They're allegedly driven by powerful outside interests who cannot afford to let Diddy talk. With a 2028 release date looking increasingly shaky due to the relentless wave of new civil lawsuits and explosive criminal evidence, the motivation for deep state industry players to permanently silence the mogul is at an all-time high. The sudden mounting of enemies, ranging from compromised A-listers frantically scrubbed from guest logs to powerful corporate executives who signed off on his operations, has turned his confinement into a deadly waiting game. The shift in audience psychology has also permanently altered how the public consumes celebrity culture. For years, traditional media outlets acted as the ultimate gatekeepers, carefully deciding which scandals to report and which ones to bury deep in the archives. But the rise of decentralized platforms, raw video essays, and unedited podcast discussions allowed everyday viewers to bypass the corporate spin entirely. Audiences are now connecting the dots in real time, matching old, disturbing archival footage, like the visibly traumatized responses of a young Justin Bieber or the systemic boundary violations on daytime couches, to the broader, dark machinery of elite Hollywood networks. The truth didn't emerge because the industry decided to reform itself. It broke through because the elite completely lost their monopoly on information. The lingering fallout from the court testimonies of brave survivors like Cassie Ventura, Audria English, and April Lamprose has set a permanent precedent. The public now thoroughly understands that flashy charitable donations, star-studded galas, and massive corporate sponsorships are frequently used as public relations camouflage to mask severe misconduct behind the scenes. The online consensus is absolute and unforgiving. Millions of users are flooding comment sections, declaring that what was manufactured in the dark has finally been completely demolished by the light. The superficial apologies, the tears of adult children pleading for a second chance, and the legal maneuvers to throw out acquitted conduct are being met with absolute cynicism by a public that demands total transparency. Ultimately, the downfall of Sean Diddy Combs serves as a historic, sobering blueprint for the expiration date of absolute power. It proves that no matter how much leverage an individual accumulates, how many secret tapes they store for blackmail, or how tightly they hold a chokehold over an industry, the curtain will always be pulled back eventually. The multi-billion-dollar empire, the private islands, and the protected circles have dissolved into a bleak reality of isolation, fear, and impending judgment. As the legal battles rage on and the walls continue to close in, the big question remains unanswered. Will he survive long enough to face the full scale of justice, or will the very system that created him ensure he takes his secrets to the grave? That is a question every viewer will have to watch unfold in real time.